You're a hunter with your sanity, aren't you? Must have taken a wrong turn, then, eh? You've seen them before. Aimless, wandering hunters slavering like beasts. So, don't be brash. Turn back before it's too late. Oh, yes, I see. You sense a secret within the nightmare and cannot bear to leave it be. As if the spirit of Bergenworth lives on within you, such inquisitive hunters will relish the nightmare. If anyone deserves to have this, it is you. But beware. Secrets are secrets for a reason, and some do not wish to see them uncovered, especially when the secrets are particularly unseemly.
So, this is a Dark Souls playthrough for the entire Soulsborne series. Recently, I went back to experience the Dark Souls 3 DLC. It wasn't out when I played the game first. And having played it, I've come to have a new appreciation for what it means, and it led to a very interesting interpretation that I think links all 5 of these games together, and I want to share it. This is going to have to be a rather chaotic playthrough because you're linking games from multiple points, and having 5 games playing simultaneously is going to be quite the juggle, but this is what we're going to do. And to commensurate how odd this is going to be, we're going to start with one of the 2 final bosses of the Dark Souls series, a boss I haven't beat yet, and here we go. Hmm. Ah. I've missed her. I keep trying to use blood vials, but that was relatively smooth. I want you to pay a special attention to this cutscene because there's something very noteworthy about what's going on here that we'll get to shortly. And also soak in that music because it's about to get really, really intense. Uh, I want you to notice that Father Ariandel here is absolutely chained to his chair, breaking out of the chains. He also has a raven motif. These details will come to be important, but we won't get to them for a little bit. And we have the Flaming Room, another thing that we'll get back to, but there's going to be a lot of that. This is usually the easiest phase of the fight. Unless I get sloppy, which I did right there. And there. I can't remember how to cast magic. Going from Bloodborne to this, that often has become a challenge. And she catches me. And we'll try again with me actually remembering how to use magic in this game. The crystal magic weapon isn't even that important. I don't know why my brain got stuck on it, but it did. That's the thing. Dark Souls is about trying something, failing, and not becoming crestfallen. It stems back to the first major NPC in the first game. Well, second, but first outside of the asylum. And here we go. I usually can break her there. She has very bad poise in this phase. It's kind of like each boss tends to have one weak point that you can exploit, similar to how Gwyn in the first game. Oh, I've missed her, and this is not good. I'm probably gonna get caught. I could have punished that better. But you... I screwed up again. There we go. When you catch her in this, you usually get a lot of free damage. I'm gonna skip the cutscene. You've already seen it, presumably. We'll get this out. Get my mana regen back. I really should not have done that. We are sloppy. Spam that dodge button, hope you can reset. I'd like them to split up a little bit, ideally. There we go. I should probably back away. Alright. I don't know quite where she... Oh, there she is. That worked out pretty well. And here comes the final phase. This is an interesting phase because it invokes a lot of Gehrman and Maria from Bloodborne. Gehrman with his high-flying scythe attacks, and Lady Maria with her phase 3 flame, although it's now a dark flame. And I'm gonna avoid the explosion, that's good. For trading, that's not the worst thing in the world. Ooh, that's a good move on her part. I almost caught it. Ooh, that's not a good... I got healed, and that's... Phase 3 is the most punishing. She gets you low, and then she catches up and just does that, which is appropriate. There's a sort of sense where Phase 1 has the most vulnerability to her poise damage. Phase 2, Ariandel doesn't protect himself, and so you can get a ton of damage by just catching his overextensions. He's the vulnerable point for that. And Phase 3, she's kind of ascended. She has the least vulnerabilities at any point in the game and the most threat. And I think there's something to that, which is, again, something we won't get to today, but I usually can't get that third, and so I probably shouldn't try. Oh. I ran out of stamina, and otherwise that was a pretty good punish. I've missed her. I think you can use sound to tell when to dodge that. I'm not very good at that. And I'm bad spacing there. That's just pretty simple. This is not the cleanest of phase ones, but it'll probably do. Hopefully I don't get caught here. She was very kind to me. Now we go for the sword switching ritual. Avoid the ice. Lure him. Don't get too greedy, because otherwise she'll come. Alright. Got some interesting floating things going on here. Definitely intentional, there's a lot of symbolism behind that. Oh, I thought I could dive through him, and that was proving not gonna work. These are annoying, I want to get just rid of them. One interesting thing about this fight is that Friede is doing frostbite attacks that make me move more slowly, attack more slowly. I think they've reduced stamina regen. And Ariandel is using flame that dinks, it does bonus damage to you if you get hit by it while you're frostbitten. Interesting teamwork. Yeah. I really don't know which weapon I favor in this. I haven't done this phase nearly enough. Here comes the explosion. Oh. Attack that. Sheesh. Are we doing this again? I dodged too early. Got caught for it. Yeah. She catches you a little bit, and then she just gets on you so quickly. We'll do one last attempt, and then we'll get to the real reason that I started here. This might be left incomplete, and that's kind of appropriate for Dark Souls. Miyazaki himself called it a series that was necessarily incomplete, both intentionally and not, and that had to be filled in by the players, and we're gonna do that. Here we go. The best damage in this phase is if you can catch her invisibilities. She just takes so much in that state. Remember to use magic. Go back to one-handed. Get out of the ice. It's lucky that she is as passive as she is during this. Oh, I misread that, and she's now gonna probably get a heal off. Oh dear. Usually you can get more damage off of the flame breaths, but this will be pretty good right here. Not a great flask situation, so this might not be the one that does it. I don't actually know where Friede died. There she is. Solid damage, and we get invisibility time. Good actual punishes there. Oh, I couldn't break that in time. Learning was had, and that is the point, but we're going to switch gears here, and hopefully I don't screw something up while doing this, because we're going to do some I'm going to do some tricky stream switching. Because I want to mention, first, Priscilla's interesting. And she's also invoked in this final fight. You might remember that Sister Friede there, she uses a lot of invisibility on me. And it's a punishing move if you don't catch it. Her scythe will just grab you into the ground. And Priscilla's interesting because she was from the painted world of Ariamis in Dark Souls 1. This is the painted world of Ariandel in Dark Souls 3. There's a parallel there. And they're both, Sister Friede and Priscilla, the main NPC of the area. In Priscilla's case, she's the only one who will talk to you in the area. What's more interesting, though, and you could say this is just an homage or whatever, incidental, what's more interesting is the dialogue that they use when they intro. For Sister Friede, I don't have it queued up in terms of audio, so I'll just have to read it. She first tells you, I have long stood beside our blessed Father and the rest of the forlorn, but forlorn thou seemeth not. Ashen one, I know not of the missteps which led thee to the painted world, but thy duty is all, and thy duty lies elsewhere. Returneth from whence thou camest, thou'st a place in that world, and that alone is cause to rejoice. Moving back to Dark Souls 1, Priscilla's introductory lines are, Who art thou? One of us thou art not. If thou hast misstepped into the world, plunge down from the plank and hurry home. If thou seekest I, thine desires shall be requited not. Thou must returneth whence thou came. This land is peaceful, its inhabitants kind, but thou dost not belong. I beg of thee, plunge down from the plank and hurry home. And these are interesting parallels because they use so much word choice that is very, very similar. It begins in both cases. Friede says, but forlorn thou seemeth not. Priscilla says, one of us, possibly the forlorn, thou art not. They both talk about missteps into this world in the second stretch of their... and then they both beseech you to return from whence thou camest. Almost precisely word from word between the two games. These parallels exist all the time. There are things in these games that echo each other, and those echoes create a resonance. And I think those echoes, those resonances, they inform us of what the creator was thinking of when they made that scene, because you'll have areas in the game that have a tremendous amount of detail gone into them, and they're never mentioned, they're never drawn attention to. These entire set pieces are just there. Maybe you notice them, maybe you don't. And I think there's almost always a reason why they're there. And that's why we're here, because this room where Sister Friede is first sitting when you enter the DLC is full of these portraits, and it's not a copy-pasted portrait. There are so many variations that went into this. There are ones where she's writing. There are ones where she's holding a candle, one where she has her hands clasped. There are so many different ones. And what's also interesting is that many of them are on fire. Here we've got one where she's holding a tablet, and then also the candle. And this woman is having her portrait made over and over again, but these portraits end in flames. What does that mean in terms of Dark Souls 3? Well, I can't precisely tell you that right now, but what I can do is I can go back to a different point in the series. We have, well, actually not the series, I misspoke, in Sekiro, the spiritual successor to the Dark Souls series. In there, we have the sculptor's room, and I want you to take a look at what the room looks like, and we're going to cut to pre-recorded footage because switching games is tough. You're going through the room, and you have statues replicated over and over again. There's variants within them, but it's an obsessive need to repeat this cycle over and over again. So much so that the character is known as the sculptor, that his central identity is this sculpting. And having looked at that, we can also look at what his reasoning for it is, because that game actually explains it, whereas Dark Souls 3 doesn't explain why these paintings are being there. In that, Sculptor tells us, alright, no matter what I do, any Buddha I carve is an incarnation of wrath. Thus is the fate of those who owe a deep karmic debt. You'll understand when you try carving one for yourself one day. So, need something? Very generic, very throwaway line, but it, I think, means a tremendous amount, that these creations are a sort of means to penance, but they get stuck in either being wrathful or being incandescent, one or the other, but there's a tragedy that the art returns to over and over again. And that's interesting because shortly after, I believe, the release of Dark Souls 3, FromSoft, headed by Miyazaki, the head of the entire studio and sort of the creative mind credited with most of the Souls series, he talked about the game that they made for the PlayStation VR. I'm going to probably horribly pronounce this, but Derasin. He describes it as creatively fresh for me personally. I am drawing from different sources of energy. As you can, but it's not just for me, it's the staff too. People working on our other games find it a nice change of pace. Internally, it's been perceived as a breath of fresh air, and as you can imagine, our other title, Sekiro, has a completely opposite mood and direction. The more time I spend working on Sekiro, the deeper I sink into this zone of blood and gore and conflict. But if I want to get out of it, I can walk over to the other side of the studio and ease myself into a completely different feeling when I work on Derasin. So there is in this statement a sense of the creator getting stuck in a cycle of repeating a violent series of games over and over again. Wrathful, ending in fire, and Derasin represents a chance to break out of that cycle for them. This becomes even more interesting when you look back at the interviews talking about Priscilla all the way back in Dark Souls 1. You find out that Firelink Shrine was initially going to be the location of Priscilla. That, quote, initially Priscilla was the heroine of the story, and she was going to be there, for example. When someone brings that up, Miyazaki immediately interjects, that's not really something I want to talk about just yet. Someone responds, Priscilla is certainly the most beautiful character in the game. Miyazaki responds, thank you. She was the heroine of the story at one point, so I'm glad you think so. Moving on to the Undead Burg. And in this, there's so much emotional conflict that is underneath the surface. This hesitance, this reluctance, this desire to avoid talking about her. That it's not something he wants to talk about just yet, and to immediately try to restore the conversation somewhere else. And this is fascinating because it comes back to Priscilla when they talk about the art design. They mentioned that she was so important that they actually outsourced her art to a different studio, and that she was put there in the painted world because she works well there. She's kind of snow-colored after all. And this is all a quote. But I also think that the painted world is a place where someone who's being chased might go to escape. And she fits that description, doesn't she? Like she's been chased from her natural place, another employee responds. Yes, although natural place means something slightly different in this case. Ha. That's a funny sort of interaction, a funny discussion, because in looking into Derasin, I found out that Derasin, as according to Miyazaki himself, is French for uprooting, quote, or someone who's been displaced from their natural environment. That this game, made probably a decade after they were working on Dark Souls 1, still invokes the same themes that they talk about in the interview for Dark Souls 1. leads me to believe that there's more going on here. And it's fascinating that they would go through such presumably extra expense to make this custom character, Priscilla, and then toss her away into this side area that seems irrelevant, that is easily missed. There's something there that needs to be explored. But we're not going to do that today, because we came here to this painted world for another reason. These games also have geographical and architectural motifs that echo each other. And these geographical echoes, I think, are important too, that they give us a hint as to what was behind the inspiration for the game. And so we're going to go down from Ariandel's chapel and Sister Friede's seat to the city that they oversee, a city of decay and ruin that is a thematic sentiment that is repeated throughout the series. And what I want you to look at is this, and tell me what's missing. I'll give you a little bit to think about that, but this area is really important because of something they don't mention, of something that isn't included. There should be a river here. You have a bridge that would go over a river, you have an outlet for the river to go through, and instead all you have is a trickle of blood flowing through the city, where a river ought to be. And this is something that has never been mentioned explicitly in the series, but is incredibly important to all of the games. And to demonstrate that, we're going to cut back to some other footage for a second, or more than a second, really. Let me load it up. It was within the same segment of the sculptor footage, so I have to do a little bit of work here, but we'll get it done. You can probably hear what game we're going to. And so we're going to cut from here to Bloodborne, because these games are connected in a sense. I'm not going to claim that there's a universe connection, but they were made by the same mind, and the themes that were used in both games inform each other. So let's take a look at this segment of the Bloodborne DLC. We start out in the room where you fight Ludwig, and we have another case of an area with blood. It's going to be a little bit to get to what I want to focus on. So we have more areas where you might have water flowing through. We have an enemy trying to get the best of you and not doing a very good job. We have the lovely crows with their lovely noises. I hope those aren't too loud. I don't know that I've sound checked for this. It's hard to get things from multiple different sources all balanced. I'm going to beat on this enemy just out of spite. I don't care for this enemy. You have another case of a very fearsome enemy that is extremely weak once you exploit the zone that they can't control. I'm going to beat up the other one. I'm pretty sure I'm going to beat up the other one, so I should have cut ahead. I apologize for including this, but we're almost to where I want to talk about. This one will be faster. And here we go. We're going to climb this ladder, and we're going to notice the sewer outlet right there, where water might be let out. And on the other side of the sewer outlet, we have this segment. A river of blood. The same sort of architectural motif that you see in the Dark Souls 3 DLC happens here. And these cranks here, I went through the game and I didn't have any sense of what they were for, but they're for loading up cargo. This was an area where a river was flowing through and something was being pulled out of the river. And why? Why actually include this river and never mention it? we have an enemy. I'm not going to show that fight. We'll get back to him. But this is, I think, the essence of the series in a sense. This lack of water, this missing water. And I say this because going back to that Dark Souls 1 interview, where Priscilla is mentioned briefly and avoided, we talk about Firelink Shrine, that it originally was going to be designed as a water temple. But as work of the game, and now we're quoting, but as work of the game progressed and the image of kindling and fire became more prominent, the water gradually dried up. Haha. They're being more revealing here than they want you to realize. The fact that water has evaporated from these worlds is a deeply essential element as to why this series exists as it does. So, the real mystery is, where did the water go and why? And I think that's where I'm going to end today. We didn't actually cover a lot in terms of gameplay, but maybe I hopefully piqued your interest in where things are going. I think that the next segment will be going back to the start and going to Firelink Shrine and Dark Souls 1. So I thank you for staying with me, and so long, good hunters. I hope you find your worth in the waking world.